Welcome back to the ACE-CPT exam prep series. This is Lesson 6. We're moving into the domain of program design and implementation, and this lesson is about what happens before a single set gets programmed, building rapport and working through the initial investigation stage. Before you can screen someone, test someone, or design a single workout for them, you have to get some things right first: health history, readiness, and trust. In this lesson, we'll walk through the health history intake process, how to gauge whether a client is actually ready to change, and how to set goals that mean something, using tools ACE expects you to know cold for the exam. Let's look at what you'll be able to do by the end of this lesson. There are 4 objectives. First, you'll be able to explain what the investigation stage actually covers, from start to finish. Second, you'll compare the PAR-Q Plus against a full health history questionnaire and know when each one is the right tool for the job. Third, you'll be able to identify the 5 stages of the transtheoretical model, the framework ACE uses to describe how ready a client is to change their behavior. And fourth, you'll be able to describe SMART goals and the GROW model and how the two work together. Keep these in mind as we go. Everything in this lesson builds toward one idea: know the client before you program for the client. Let's zoom out before we get into the details. The investigation stage covers 3 things, and they happen in a specific order for a reason. First, rapport. Trust and communication quality are the foundation everything else in this process sits on. Skip this, and everything downstream gets shakier. Second, health and risk screening. This means running either the PAR-Q Plus or a full health history questionnaire, and it happens before any fitness testing takes place. You need to know it's safe before you ever ask a client to move. Third, readiness and goals. Once you know it's safe, you figure out where the client actually sits on the stages of change, and then you build SMART goals together using the GROW model. Notice the order: rapport, then safety, then readiness and goals. That sequence matters, and we'll come back to why later in this lesson. Let's start with rapport, because this is the piece that's easy to underrate. Rapport is a relationship marked by mutual understanding and trust. It sounds soft, but building it is an actual skill with actual components: active listening, reading verbal and nonverbal cues, and adjusting your communication style to the person actually sitting in front of you. And here's the key detail: all of that happens before any assessment takes place. You're not building rapport as a nice-to-have on the side. You're building it first, deliberately, because a client who doesn't trust you isn't going to give you honest answers on a health history form and isn't going to stick around long enough for any of your programming to matter. Now let's look at the 2 tools ACE wants you to know for screening: the PAR-Q Plus and the full health history questionnaire. Start with the PAR-Q Plus. Its strength is that it's fast, simple, and non-invasive. A client can fill it out in a couple of minutes without feeling like they're at a doctor's office. But that same simplicity is its limitation. Because it's brief by design, it can miss things: medications, past injuries, the kind of nuance that only comes out with more detailed questions. Now compare that to the full health history questionnaire. Its strength is depth. It captures medications, injuries, and family history, the details the PAR-Q Plus just doesn't have room for. The trade-off is time and tone. It takes longer to complete, and it can feel more clinical to the client. Neither tool is universally better. The exam wants you to know when each one fits. This next piece comes from the transtheoretical model, and it describes where a client sits in their readiness to actually change a behavior. There are 5 stages, and they move in order. Pre-contemplation is first. The client isn't currently considering exercise at all. Contemplation comes next. They're aware a change is needed, and they're thinking about it, but they haven't committed. Then preparation. They intend to act soon, and they may already be taking small steps toward it. Action follows. They're actively exercising, typically within the past 6 months. And finally, maintenance. They're sustaining the behavior over time, and the focus shifts to preventing relapse. Knowing which stage your client is in changes how you talk to them. A client in contemplation needs a very different conversation than a client already in action. Once you know where a client stands, it's time to set goals. And ACE gives you two tools that work together here. First, SMART goals. That's specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. A simple checklist that keeps a goal from staying vague and unmeasurable. Second, the GROW model. That stands for goal, reality, options, will. And this isn't a checklist, it's a conversation. It's the process you actually walk through collaboratively with the client to arrive at those SMART goals together, rather than just handing them down. One more critical point on this slide. If screening surfaces a red flag at any point, the correct move is a referral for medical clearance before programming continues. That's not optional, and it's a common exam scenario, so hold on to it. Let's talk about a classic exam trap, because this one shows up often. A question will describe a trainer moving straight from health history into movement screening, collecting the intake form, and then immediately jumping into testing. It feels efficient, it feels thorough, but it's missing a step. The gap usually isn't about safety at all. It's that readiness for change and goal setting got skipped entirely. Here's the distinction to remember. Health screening only answers whether it's safe for someone to exercise. It says nothing about whether they're actually ready to. Those are two separate questions, and the exam wants you to be able to tell them apart. Don't let a scenario like this trick you into thinking safety alone means the investigation stage is complete. Let's put this into practice with a question. What is the primary purpose of the investigation stage? Option 1, to determine the client's exact 1-rep max before any exercise. Option 2, to collect health, safety, lifestyle, and readiness information before assessment or programming. Option 3, to sell the client on a specific training package. Option 4, to immediately assign a client to load or speed training. Take a moment to think it through. The correct answer is option 2, to collect health, safety, lifestyle, and readiness information before assessment or programming. Here's why. The investigation stage exists to gather all of the relevant health, safety, lifestyle, and readiness for change information before you ever move into fitness assessments or actual program design. It's the groundwork, not the finish line. One more question. Why is rapport considered foundational in the ACE-IFT model, rather than just a soft skill add-on? Option 1, because it has no real impact on client outcomes. Option 2, because trust and communication quality strongly predict client adherence and retention. Option 3, because ACE requires a signed rapport agreement. Option 4, because it replaces the need for health screening. Take a moment to think it through. The correct answer is option 2, because trust and communication quality strongly predict client adherence and retention. Here's why. ACE's own research points to a negative trainer relationship, not cost, as the leading driver of most client dropout. That's exactly why rapport sits at the foundation of the model, rather than off to the side as an extra. Let's bring it all together before we move on. The investigation stage collects health, safety, lifestyle, and readiness information before assessment even begins. Rapport is the foundation the entire model sits on, not an afterthought. The PAR-Q Plus is fast but brief, while a full health history questionnaire catches the detail it misses. The transtheoretical model's 5 stages describe a client's readiness to change, from pre-contemplation all the way through maintenance. And SMART goals define the target, while the GROW model is the collaborative conversation you use to actually get there. Hold on to that sequence. Rapport, then safety, then readiness and goals. It's the backbone of this entire lesson. That's a wrap on Lesson 6. In Lesson 7, we're covering functional assessments, posture, the 4 movement screens, core function, balance, and flexibility. We'll get into how to actually read the way a client moves and what their movement is telling you before you ever write a program. See you in the next lesson.